Welcome to Eye.Talk.Tech, where we explore the intersection of eye care and technology. I'm your host, Dr. Griffin Christensen. Independent optometry is a technology forward profession, and we know when it turns to running the actual business, a lot of practices are duct taping 4 to 7 disconnected systems together, and that's what we call a workflow oftentimes. My guest today has spent the last several years trying to change that specifically. He's the co founder and CEO of Barti, which bills itself as the operating system for eye care. Colton, it's wonderful to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Couldn't be more excited to be here. Yeah, long time listener, first time caller.
Well, we're excited to have you here for sure, and I kind of want to get a little bit into the origin story, the early days for Barty. I'm curious. I know you guys had a co-founder, Dr. Kelly Kai. Is that how you pronounce her last name?
Correct.
Yeah, and she's an OD herself. I'm curious what it was like building alongside someone that was in the profession, and kind of what was the impetus for starting things with Barty here.
Yeah, we are very proud to be an OD founded company. We're one of the really only softwares in the industry that can claim that. We're very proud of the fact that we work just with independent optometry. We ourselves are independent and not owned by private equity or one of the big 800-pound gorillas in the space. And that's also our reason for why we started the company. Kelly has felt the pain herself very acutely of bad software. She'll always tell the story of she trained on EHR when she was in school, but then actually two of the practices she worked at afterwards were using paper charts. And it was really miserable. But she's also used a bad EHR that really slowed her down. And so she's felt the pain of finishing charts at the end of the day after you've already done a full day of work. That's what we call pajama time, right? And so that was really the origin of why we started Barty. We wanted to make something that solved the biggest problem for doctors, which is often they're spending too much time clicking in the system and not enough time with the patients. And so, a little bit more specifically, my background, I've been working in AI for about 5 years now. I've been building software companies for about a decade, but specifically focused on healthcare technology. And one thing I can tell you from compared to any other industry in medicine, Eyecare has some of the worst software. So, like you mentioned, in terms of a lot of the equipment, a lot of optometrists have the latest and greatest when it comes to diagnostic equipment.
Sure.
But when it comes to the core software that runs the business, we are behind almost everyone in medicine, who,
Yep.
by the way, is behind the rest of the general economy.
Yeah.
So, if you look at dentistry, for example, there's 4 or 5 well-funded high-tech startups building better software for dentistry. Physical therapy has 3 or 4. Autism therapy has 3 or 4. There's been nothing new in eye care for almost 20 years. And so that's a very unique opening. That's really what prompted us to start Barty about 4 years ago.
Yeah, and my experience in prior to getting prepared for the show was you guys as an EHR platform, as we mentioned, looking at maybe positioning yourself as the operating system for eye care. What does that phrase mean to you? How would you, characterize that?
Yeah. So when we say that we're an operating system, what that means is that we do a lot more than just the EHR. We're almost everything you need to run the business. So specifically, we include things like all the communication tools that are almost always, like you said, duct taped together with other solutions. So we're the only EHR that has, for example, the phones built in. So a lot of people love the fact they not only get a new EHR with AI, but they can replace their phone system. They can replace their online scheduling, their intake forms, their e-fax. We have tools for marketing. So think email marketing, reviews, and reputation management. We have tools for finance. Think expense management, helping the practice owners track where their dollars are going. And so we are basically a lot more than just the EHR. So operating system is every part of the business. So, again, every employee in the business as well, the insurance biller, the optical staff, the doctor, they all benefit from having more automation and having everything in one place. So it's a new category. We really feel like we're planting the flag there. But we think that's also the movement with AI across not just optometry, but healthcare. Really, things are now where you want all of your data in one place because then you can unlock a lot more with AI and the agents, the agentic capabilities that are possible now work a lot better when you have all the data in one place. So we see this as kind of the long-term trend
Sure.
away from the history of, yeah, like, we call it the Frankenstein tech stack, right? You kind of stitch together or duct tape together, like you said, 5, 6, 7 different tools. that results in a lot of data silos. So we unify all that together.
Yeah, you mentioned the high tech, sort of diagnostic technology that we have access to, but it's very siloed, right? Oftentimes when I'm practicing, I have 5, 6 different programs all open at once and on an older computer, no less, and battling through all that, and there's no communication in between those, and oftentimes they're from rivaling companies and so forth. So is maybe the long term vision something where the operating system layer can allow for communication between those tools?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You should no longer have to be juggling different tabs, different computers, and copying and pasting things. Those are the days of the past. So already, we're seeing more and more people take advantage of those either integrations with, for us, for example, diagnostic equipment. You can directly input all the refractive data with the click of a button into the chart. So there's no more like clicking and typing to re-enter that data, basically. Image management is another big thing that is getting better and better. So yeah, to your point, the days of those silos are gone, and then even more broadly, like how you share that information with other providers, right? And so
Sure.
the ability to easily, whether it's electronic fax or whatever, sharing the right information in a letter is getting easier and easier.
And I want to get your perspective too on I want to look at where we're going and what Barty's bringing to the table here and hammer in on that. But I'm also curious your perspective as to how we got where we are now, this situation we laid out with these different silos and so forth. And why do you think optometry has historically lagged behind not just the general business sector, but specifically lagged behind even within this medical segment that is lacking itself when it comes to technology and this workflow that we have? Why do you think that developed the way it has?
In short, I would say that optometry does have more complexity than a lot of other industries. So, for example, it's really one of the only parts of healthcare a merchant is married to the provider, meaning it's not just providing services, but we're selling physical things, right? Glasses, contact lenses. There's not a lot of other parts of medicine where they have all that complexity on both, where you have a complex medical service, but then also a fairly complex retail purchase, right? It's also not just like picking something off the shelf and you're good. There's a lot that goes into the glasses order, obviously. So that complexity means that you almost never see a software that isn't made for optometry come play in optometry, because none of them can handle any of the retail stuff. The problem is, in the way we got here, is that a lot of the legacy systems in optometry just haven't bothered to innovate. And there's kind of a variety of reasons and flavors for that. But the reality is, most systems have not changed meaningfully in 15 years. Like most of the legacy systems that have been around for a long time, and there's been very little meaningful change. Again, you can kind of keep asking the 5 whys here, right? You keep peeling the onion. Part of that is because, frankly, people don't like to change their EHRs. So even when they're unhappy, they just stick with it because it's sort of the devil you know versus the devil you don't. But unfortunately, where that's gotten us to is that effectively these legacy systems have gotten away with that for a long time, which has now forced practice owners to go bolt on or duct tape together these other
Sure.
newer technologies that should be available in the legacy systems, but they're not.
Yeah, and we've gotten to a point where it works well enough for a lot of folks, but I think we're at an inflection point, maybe, and sounds like you agree. Have you done any work to sort of quantify realistically how much not only time but maybe money is being lost to these inefficient systems?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's the financial cost. We always talk about the dollars and cents and the ROI, and then there's the emotional psychological cost.
Well, that's yeah,
Uh,
another cost too. Yeah.
there's actually a study done specifically focused on optometry, but this is true across medicine. Documentation is one of the leading causes of burnout. It's not a small problem. This is like a hair on fire problem for a lot of doctors. I can't tell you how often I talk to a doctor who says, I'm spending 2 hours at the end of the day just to finish my charts. And I'm not even able to finish my chart with the patient in the room. And that, of course, is terrible for them at night, but then also cause all kinds of other downstream challenges for the practice. So there's a big psychological factor. There's also the psychological cost for the patient, meaning patients don't like when the doctor has the back turned to them instead of being able to engage with them
Yeah.
during the exam. And so if you have to click 100 times, which is how it works today, to do one routine eye exam in most legacy systems, you're not able to engage with the patient. So those are a little bit more of like the human costs. The financial cost is significant. We're talking up to 10% of a practice's revenue. The quick back of the napkin math with some of Barty's best customers, for example, um, they're able to see an additional 1 to 2 patients per day because of the time savings. If you think your average patient revenue maybe is something like $300 per patient per visit, what that ends up being, those extra 20 to 40 patients a month, ends up being tens of thousands of dollars over the course of the year. And so oftentimes for a practice, it can even be six figures. If they're a typical practice, it is a dramatic improvement to be able to, save even 1 or 2 hours of time that goes right back to patient care. Um, Now, of course, not all practices have that privilege of having a full patient list, but that's also where the lack of the so that's from the time savings, but then there's also a lack
Yep.
of other tools that, again, everyone else in the general economy has, like email marketing, being able to easily get more patients in the door, manage your Google Maps reviews. Optometry is not the only business where people go and they search and they look for who has the highest reviews, but very few optometry softwares help practices boost that. But if you're a cold start practice trying to get patients, but really, if we even just focus and narrow the problem to how long it takes the doctor to document, that alone can be a 5 to 10% cost basically of their revenue. It's a hidden cost from how much extra time they're spending. You might have heard this before, but it's kind of the dirty secret of EHRs that doctors used to be actually more efficient without EHRs. Meaning like before we went to EHRs, a doctor could see 25, 35 patients a day. That same doctor doing the same thing now can only do like 20 to 25. There's a lot of other downstream benefits of the EHR, and there's a variety of reasons we moved to it. But just apples to apples, it is not always faster to actually chart electronically, right?
Yeah.
And so there are some real costs there if you don't have a system that's efficient.
My dad is an OD, and we've practiced together for a number of years. Congratulations to him as he enters retirement here. But I know we would oftentimes have opposite reactions in the clinic when the EHR wasn't working. Whereas I had done, 1 or 2 paper charts in my career, I was kind of miffed about the thing, and he was about ready to celebrate. So to your point, I think there
Yeah,
were some efficiencies of the paper charting.
yeah,
And so you look at that 10% number, um, I'd love to push back on that, but it makes sense. But that's only looking at the charting component. Like if you looked at missed calls, recalls, and so forth, and unbilled services, and
yep,
insurance claim errors, and all these things, is
yep.
that something that you think AI is going to be integrated in with as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So you named a few of the key areas. Like, unfortunately, there's a lot of leaking revenue in the typical practice. There's a lot of areas that, in some ways, are kind of low hanging fruit, but even sophisticated businesses struggle. So you brought up a great one: missed calls. So throw out a guess. What percent of all calls does a typical practice miss in a given day? What would be your best guess?
I've heard this, and maybe it was you that I heard ask this recently, but the number surprises me. So I'm gonna have a high guess here, but I'm gonna throw 20%.
Yeah, 30 to 40%,
Oh, wow,
depending
wow.
on
I
which
was
study.
trying to overestimate.
That's crazy, right? And,
Yeah.
that means a third of the time a patient picks up the phone to ask for an appointment, they don't get anybody. And what does that patient do? They move on to lens crafters or whoever is going to answer the phone. And so because they're impatient, right? And so that alone, the missed call volume translates to another, call it $2,000 to $4,000 per week. Again, we're talking a six-figure impact over the course of the year. And this is another one of those sort of hidden costs. A lot of practices aren't even thinking about that. They know they miss a call here or there. They usually underestimate it dramatically. Another big option is in the patient payments, right? I'm always shocked at how few practices have a full system to make sure they're collecting all of the right copays and deductibles from a patient. What often ends up happening, that patient leaves, and then after the fact, they realize the patient actually owes them money and there's a balance. And what do most practices do today when there's a balance? They send them a paper statement in the mail. Versus today, this is not novel AI technology. You can send them a link for them to pay on their phone, right? And that's much easier for everybody involved, and updates automatically. Now, where I think it gets really interesting is when you combine AI with some of those I don't want to say basic, but some of those other tools. Meaning, for example, at Barty, we're creating an AI agent that will automatically follow up with the patient and send them those links without the staff having to do anything. So just in the
Wow.
background, the agent is collecting the money basically from the patients. And so when you combine those, you can get some powerful things. But missed calls, and then of course there should be a ton of focus on the conversion rate of patients. How many patients are buying their glasses or contacts from you versus walking out to 1-800 contacts or Warby Parker. And so we help in a few ways with that. But that's another area where, if you think about it, it affects every exam. Every comprehensive exam, you have that at bat, and the difference between a 50% conversion rate and a 60%
Yeah.
conversion rate is going to be, like, again, for a typical practice, in the hundreds of thousands of
Yep.
dollars of revenue on the table.
Yep. Well, and I'm sure you almost have mixed emotions if you see a practice with some of these maybe red flags. There are also opportunities, though, right? And so how do you battle that when you're having a conversation? Like, yeah, I think there's room for improvement here, or do you kind of focus on the positive benefits that you think maybe you can bring?
It gets people fired up because they a lot of times they know they should be doing some of these things, but they either just haven't had the access in
We
their
don't know
current,
how.
or they don't know how.
Yep.
But, it's people know that they should have a digital intake form that the patient does ahead of time. Again, this is not AI, this is not
Yep.
2026 technology. This is 2015 technology.
Yep.
But I will tell you, working with hundreds of practices, fewer than 10% have a good system for that. Some of them are using some kind of digital form, but then they get a PDF and they have to copy paste it into the EHR. So very few practices have a good system where patients are filling out their intake forms that time. But again, it compounds because that applies to every visit.
Yep.
So if you can save that 5 or 10 minutes, not only do patients prefer it, they don't have to do the clipboard when they show up. The doctor and the staff prefer it because then they're doing a lot less data entry. So I'm very honest with the practices where I say, hey, this is normal, this is standard, but I'll just tell you, you have a lot of low hanging fruit you could fix with these 7 different solutions. So I try to console them a little bit, like, hey, this is typical, but here's what it could be. This is what the
Sure.
best in class people are now doing.
Sure. Yeah, so as you established there pretty comprehensively, there's a lot of room for improvement just getting up to pure technological general software improvements, right? When we start to talk about AI, it's obviously become, a buzzword here. But I do think that it's at the heart of what you guys do. And what was the original impetus or the original plan? Because I know AI has been a part of your system for some time, but when did you kind of see where we were headed, and what did you want to establish initially with that?
The whole reason that Barty exists, and the thing that we do that other companies won't, is we're bringing the latest of technology to Eyecare, specifically for software. But that doesn't just mean the intake forms or the online scheduling being included, but whatever is being new and released, that includes AI. So for us, AI is just built into our core mission. We want to be giving doctors like you access to the latest and greatest, and not waiting 5 or 10 years, frankly, for them to kind of trickle down from
Sure.
other industries. And so AI is a perfect example of that. Like, we were the first mover in AI in optometry. We were the first software product to offer an AI feature. We had our AI scribe. That's our flagship AI feature we've had now for going on 2 years. And what that has allowed doctors to do is just talk, and it fills out the chart notes for them. And kind of like zooming way out, this is one of the best use cases for AI anywhere in the world. My fiance is a product manager at a big tech company. And so she's working with software developers at a very big company. And she went to a conference this week, focused on AI. And the main topic in the keynote, the main example they used was an AI scribe in healthcare, because truly it's like the best place where you're solving a key problem the doctor hates and the patient hates. You're giving doctors time back, which has a material benefit, and it's a win-win for everyone. Actually,
Yep.
the notes are more detailed than what usually a human doctor will write, and again, you're saving the doctor the worst part of their day. And it's not about at all like replacing the doctor. Like, no doctor's upset that they're, because no one went to school to be a scribe themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first immediate use case we had for AI. Because again, when we really founded the whole company, the focus was, we're spending too much time documenting. Boom. AI Scribe is like literally the perfect example of that. It's also a good example of Barty's, we aim for a 10x better product, meaning we don't just want to be 20% better or 50% better or even twice as good. which is obviously a big difference, but we want to be 10 times better than the alternative. And we really think that the AI scribe is 10 times better than clicking 100 times to documents. So that was where we started about 2 years ago. We really planted the flag, and we haven't taken our foot off the gas. In fact, of course, you can guess we're using AI very heavily at Barti
Yep.
to make the product. So our
Yep.
software developers are seeing almost a 40 to 60% improvement in their productivity, which
Well,
is great news for everyone in the industry because now we're able
yeah.
to move even faster. And so a lot of folks are just now, I know you were at Vision Expo, sure, walking around, everything is AI, right? Every company now has AI in their marketing and their slogans. My hot take is there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with the AI that's being marketed by a lot of companies in the space where no one's actually using it. We've had doctors using it now for 2 years, and we're proud to be one of the few products that does that. We now have 10 other products though that have AI. So we have our what we call AI history, which is another charting tool that summarizes all of the past data. Imagine like HIPAA compliant ChatGPT has access
Sure.
to all of your charts, so you can just ask it anything. We partner very closely with AOA. We're endorsed and invested in by AOA Excel. We've actually taken the AOA clinical guidelines and put them into an AI chatbot in
Really?
the exam. So if you want a quick
Oh,
reference,
wow.
remind me what the recommended follow up is for this.
Yeah.
Boom, right there in the exam.
Wow.
We also have AI tools for marketing. So again, mostly when I talk to doctors, they're doing very little marketing. And there's a few reasons for that. They don't have the time, they don't know how. With AI, you can literally have it create an email campaign for you. Say, create me a back to school campaign. Boom, the graphics and the visuals are done, the copywriting and the text is all done, and you literally just hit send. So that's something that we have. And then a big announcement at Vision Expo was we're launching our AI receptionist. And so now those 30% of calls that get missed, there's a backup option. So whether it's after hours or even during the day, if your staff can't get to the phone in time, the AI can answer it and schedule that appointment without letting it slip through the cracks. So but I think to summarize, we move quickly in AI, and that's really where we're investing a lot of our effort moving forward. Our
Yeah.
view is we want to automate 80% of the repetitive work and data entry work in the business. And more, everything is going to be voice first. So we want to be the voice first EMR. What does that mean? That means that very soon you're going to have even the optician be able to do everything with their voice and say, great. So it sounds like you want a bevel frame with an anti-reflective coating in this kind of lens. And it will be done in the software without them having to click or type anything. And it'll just be able to do that based on voice. So we're really excited about some of the possibilities now that that are unlocked by AI.
Yeah. A lot of different threads you're pulling on, and cool to hear how that iteration process can be enhanced by AI itself. It's an exciting time that way. One of the things that I've kind of thought about a little bit philosophically is with some of these tools, and I'm sure people on your software team could attest, whether it's an open claw or a Claude Code or something like that, where we're starting to embed memories into these systems. We're starting to have a system that really learns with you or adapts to the way that you work and so forth. Is that something you think about, whether it be a scribe or just the HR in general, is how much do we want to start to learn from the way that the doctor operates and wants the scribe to just as a human scribe would learn when they were working with the doctor? Or do we want to, guide them more towards best practices? Is that, something that you've given much time to think about?
Yeah, yeah. You raised a couple great things that we're thinking very heavily about. So one is in the era of AI, it's going to be the era of hyper personalization, right? Because the AI can be tailored and remember all of the preferences that are specific to you as a doctor versus the other doctor, even in the same practice. So, we have ways to customize things on a per doctor level, but the AI is just going to be able to do that automatically, right? And learn from the previous content or the previous output and really help tailor it to what each individual, and by the way, that will extend to the patient. So eventually, right, we'll be able to have communication preferences with the patient that are tailored towards what they want, right? And even think about AI suggestions for this patient has bought these types of lenses before and they've expressed interest in their dry eye survey that they have, really bad dry eye in the morning, and proactively helping the practice tailor it for the patient too. Um, so, that's one big trend we're excited about. And then the other thing you mentioned, is helping to actually drive best practices. And so this is something, I think a good example of that is the AI guidelines product I mentioned, where we're helping make it more easy for folks to do what's the best practice, do what is considered the standard of care. And then also start to do things like benchmark, right? Where we can say, hey, for this thing that you're doing, 80% of doctors do it this way and 20% do it this way. You still have the choice. And if you have a strong opinion, great. But like
Yeah,
sometimes people really appreciate
that data.
guidance. And, ultimately our goal is to help the doctor better take care of the patient, right? So then if they're able
Yeah.
to deliver better care, that just gives superpowers to the provider.
Yeah. Now I think we've hit on a bunch of these different areas that Barty's all doing under one roof, which is really cool. But I'd be curious, how would you walk through just the full patient encounter? Someone is interested in looking where they're going to go, what eye doctor they're going to see, in their first interaction with that staff, and maybe walk us through where each touch point might be associated with Barty. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's normally how we actually would do our typical product demonstration is we'd say,
Okay.
hey, let's pretend I'm a new patient coming in for an eye exam. We're going to walk you through in Barty booking the appointment, doing the exam, everything during the checkout and afterwards. And so, the headline is every single part of that process needs to be documented in Barty. And really that's, yeah, that is going to be true of most EHRs, but I think we extend even more. For example, it starts when the patient picks up the phone. In most EHRs, the phone is a separate system. For us, it's built right in. So if it's an existing patient that calls, boom, it pops up the patient profile, like caller ID.
Mm.
So the staff immediately
Right
knows who
away
it is.
as the receptionist answers.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that immediately equips them with, hey, we see that you're calling. Is it about your upcoming appointment? Right. Or is it about the glasses you ordered 2 weeks ago? So it lets them deliver better service. But let's say I'm a new patient. Phone comes in. All that data for the phone is now in Barty. They can schedule the appointment using Barty's calendar. Great. The other way they could schedule is online scheduling. So again, it's one of those things. It's 2026. You'd be shocked at how few practices let patients book their own appointment online. Lots of studies show, and we've seen this in our data, you'll usually see something like a 20% increase in the number of new appointment requests in a month when you let patients book themselves. So
Mm,
it's again very low hanging fruit. If a doctor isn't doing this, one of my first recommendations, like you're going to see a boost in patients. There are patients today that are going to go look at your website and move on to someone else because they can't book with you and they have to pick up the phone.
sure.
Sounds
Who's more
silly.
the resistance?
Yeah, it's partly, and partly it is a generational thing, but even older people want to be able to book online, right? And so in Barty, that we let them do that, and then it automatically syncs. Again, this is one of the benefits of not having the Frankenstein system. It all works together perfectly. A lot of practices, if they have a separate online scheduling tool, they're double booking, and someone will book online, and then they don't know they book another patient in person. So in Barty, we help them book the appointment, and then everything before the appointment is also automated in Barty, meaning we're going to automatically send an appointment reminder via text message. A lot of practices are still calling, super manual. We automatically send the intake form. That's a great link that's very mobile friendly. The patient does ahead of time. So again, there's no clipboard when they show up. Um, and then when the patient arrives, the staff checks them in. All of the pre-testing, not only the information needs to go into Barty, but we connect with that equipment. So again, the auto refractor, all that data pushes in Barty automatically. The intake form data all pushes in automatically. So a lot of the chart is like filled out without anyone having to click or type anything. And then we layer in the AI scribe. So the doctor can talk normally with the patient, and then the chart is filled out for them. And so that saves them a ton of time. The doctor then just reviews it. Yep, that looks good. And then sends the patient to get glasses. The optician then is in Barty, creating the optical order. It's really easy to submit that order to a lab through VisionWeb. It's kind of again the death by a thousand cuts. Most practices have to log in separately to do that. They're double entering that data into the VisionWeb portal, or they're double entering the auto refraction
Yep.
information.
Yep.
There's a lot of those things that are very common. And again, it compounds. You're doing that 15, 20 times a day versus having it saved. Um, and then the checkout process. So collecting the payment, Barty has an integrated payment system. So again, another one of the thousand cuts. Most practices, they create the invoice for the patient, and then they go type in the amount, they double enter that amount into a separate credit card machine, they swipe the card, and then they go back to the system and say, yeah, we actually collected this. So it's a lot of back and forth. And Barti, they just swipe the card and they're done. It automatically updates the invoice. The patient walks out. They're like, great. The patient gets a email or a text asking for a 5-star review. That review goes straight to the practice. And then we also give tools for the back office folks, meaning the insurance biller. Very easy to submit the insurance claim through Barti to a clearinghouse. When you get paid, that payment gets posted automatically. A lot of people don't have that. You have to manually type in all the payments once you get paid by insurance. We now have that automatically posted. So pretty much every step of the way, we're trying to connect these disconnected links. We're trying to automate things and help not only the staff, but the patient as well. So pretty much there's almost no part of that process that Barti is not involved in some way.
Yeah, and when you have a doctor onboarded and integrated with it, I would call it an end-to-end system. What do you hear back? What are they experiencing that maybe they didn't expect?
Yeah, it's what gets me out of bed in the morning. When I was at Vision Expo, I was at a social event and I was talking to one of our early customers. One of their associate doctors comes up and says, I love Barti. It's so much better than what I had before. Not clicking and typing as much. And it's just a lot easier. That's the word that happens. We hear over and over again. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot easier. It's a lot more straightforward to navigate. Most doctors specifically need almost no training. The office staff needs a little bit of training on the point of sale and the calendar. Doctors, we put them at the top. You just scroll down and you're done. And so people really love that. I'm actually in Chicago right now, helping to onboard a big new customer. And their staff is like chomping at the bit to start, which is awesome because they hate their old system so much. Selfishly, it's like good. It's like, yep, that's this is why we're here, right? This is why Barti exists. And they just keep saying the word, someone today said it looks like it's the first system from the modern era. And that, it's just really easy to use, even though they didn't have a lot of training. So that's easy is really the big word that comes to mind. And then usually the wow factor is the AI scribe. Like when doctors see that work, the light bulb really goes off that like, oh, this could really transform one of the worst parts of my job.
Sure. And what's kind of the roadmap? What's 2027 and beyond? What are you excited about thinking towards the future and all this change that we see kind of ramping up, snowballing, so to speak?
Totally. And I think it's almost a cliche of when you talk about AI, but I think it's hard. I think it's actually hard to overemphasize how quickly things are moving. You hear that a lot, but like truly every 1 or 2 months, there's a major new development that totally like the ground is shifting beneath our feet in some ways that are good, in some ways that are, to be determined. But the reality is things are moving quickly. We're moving very quickly at Barti. And, every month, for example, we show, here's everything that we just launched this month. And it's a long list. And they're like we're launching like major features now, almost every other week. So it's pretty remarkable, even like for us, how much we've accelerated compared to a year or 2 years ago. And so in terms of what's on the roadmap, I think the overarching goal, there's a few overarching goals I'll share. If it's repetitive data entry, we want to automate 80 to 90% of that. So things like insurance eligibility verification, figuring out deductibles, all of that is going to be automated in Barti. Again, following up with patients to collect balances or to collect insurance cards, all of that is going to be automated. But the rallying cry is like automate 80% of the duplicative, repetitive work that humans just don't need to be doing. Let them focus on the, actual face-to-face interactions, providing really good service, actually delivering the exam, and helping deliver the really good recommendations on the glasses and the optical. More specifically, so what does that mean? That means we're going to have a variety of agents that you can activate with your voice. So an agent to scrub and submit insurance claims and to do patient eligibility. An inventory and procurement agent. So think about an agent that helps you order frames based on what the historical sales were, right? Rather than just relying on your frames reps when they come in, being data driven and your AI saying, hey, based on your purchase data, your demographics in your area, you should stop ordering these and you should start ordering these. And then you can imagine over time, actually, you're not even approving it. You're just getting informed. Hey, by the way, the AI agent already submitted an order for another 30 pairs of your top seller. You didn't have to do literally anything. Great. So an AI procurement agent, and then more AI clinical tools. So helping doctors to educate patients, for example. I think that's like a big area. Again, kind of like an open, dirty secret. Like most practices do almost nothing for patient education. Like when a patient walks out the door, and I don't think this is just eye care, to be honest. It's like one ear out the other, right? I think doctors don't always appreciate, like patients like forget, they get nervous, or they just like,
I think that's the way to put it. I think a lot of doctors would say that they are doing a good job of patient education, but maybe there are patients that wouldn't agree to your point, because it's a lot to take in and remember. So you guys have ways of closing the loop there.
yeah. And so imagine an AI agent that is gonna not only send some good information, right, to the patient about their condition, but maybe ask them some questions, or answer some questions. Ask the
Sure.
patient, "Hey, what questions do you have about this? What's not clear? Like, what concerns do you have?" And then being able to facilitate that conversation all with AI. Really, all of that is on the table. I think, um, some of the other more, I don't want to say logistical, but more data related um, options would be what we're calling AI insights. So imagine again, ChatGPT has access to all the data in your practice, and you can just say, "Hey, what was our conversion rate for these two doctors last month?" Or pull me a list of every glaucoma patient I've ever had, or compare this insurance to that insurance based on the payments we've received, and not even having to create your own report or dig through reports, just typing that in naturally and having the AI surface that. That's a big one I'm excited about. And then one that I think will excite a lot of people is AI data migration, meaning one of the biggest challenges right now to switching is a lot of the old systems won't provide the data in a usable way. So they'll provide your exams like in a PDF. So if you switch
Mm,
from an old system to Barty, you basically have to pull up the PDF for the existing patients rather than being able to like
mm,
copy forward that data like you're used to. With AI, that's changing, right? There's no such thing as data getting trapped in a PDF anymore. Like the AI can just go and extract
yeah.
all that data and put it into the right fields. So what that means is the barrier to switching EHRs is going to go way down.
Mm,
Right now, you're going to be able to say, I will click a button and all of your data, every bit of data will be
personal.
exactly where it should be in Barty. And people go, wow, okay, great. Then, there's a couple systems that are really do some borderline like unethical things where they really don't like let you get the data at all. And that prevents a lot of people from switching. But with AI, that's going to be a thing of the past. So we're really excited about it,
Yeah.
and we're sort of democratizing that.
Yeah. Well, I think we need an AI agent to allow folks to ask questions about this conversation. We covered a lot of ground, and
Yeah.
we don't have that integrated with the show with Eye.Talk.Tech here yet. So, short of that, where can folks go to find out more information about Barty? Where I know you've been involved with the Innovation Hub with the AOA. Where you're on the road a lot. Where are you going to be coming up for the rest of the year if docs want to interact with you in person?
Yeah, great question. Almost definitely all the major trade shows and CE events we'll be at. Come check us out at the booth at Optometry's meeting is another big one that's coming up shortly. We also go to quite a few state and regional events as well. So yeah, we go to a lot of events. I'm actually going to peek at my list here. We also are going to some other local events. The next big one though would be that Optometry's meeting
Yeah.
or FOA. Barty.com has a lot of information. We have testimonials from customers. We have more information about the product, and we actually have an AI chatbot that you can ask any questions you want about the product. And you can also schedule time with a product specialist to walk through a demo and to do a kind of a vendor comparison. So yeah, reach out, Barty.com. You can email me directly, the CEO at Colton at Barty.com, or come see us at on one of the shows. And yeah, you were joking about it, but I'm like, I need to download every podcast I've ever done, put it into an agent, and then
Yeah.
make sure we have all that information available. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's not that far off, right? So,
Yeah.
again, Colton, thank you so much for your time here. If our listeners out there enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe so other practitioners can learn more about Barty and other exciting things going on in eye care and AI and technology here. And if you have any thoughts about what you want to hear next, please put that in the comments. Once again, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time on iTalk Tech.